Yo, Headliner Nation, what's going on? It's your boy Kyle, back with the Fantasy Headliners, aka the No Off-Season channel. Saying off-season around here is a dirty word because we don't go anywhere. January through December, we are here to help you prepare for, dominate, get ready for, win, whatever it may be. We're here to help you win fantasy football championships. And that's what we're doing here today. A show that I did a couple of weeks ago talked about some of the top, very top, not many of them, but a few predictions of the top free agents or trade targets and where I think the best case scenario would be for each of them. This time, I dive in even deeper and talk about more of the top free agents that are available at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end, and discuss whether or not they plan on staying with their team or bolting out of there and heading to greener pastures. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking about that right now before we jump into it. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said, there is no off season. So if you're wanting to get tons of content from the Fantasy Headliners this year, sign up over on Patreon. Our MVP tier is only $20. You get DFS content for golf, NBA, for the Super Bowl if you're looking to win a little bit of money during the Super Bowl. And we have tons of articles, and we're going to be expanding our content over there. And, of course, our exclusive podcast, Straight Chubb, where I spent about 10 minutes yelling about the Detroit Lions yesterday. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump into it right now. Again, we're going to be talking about the top free agents at each position, whether or not they think they are going to stick around or they're going to be headed out to a different team. Let's go ahead and kick it off, ladies and gentlemen, with the quarterbacks. See there, got several guys listed at the quarterback position that are going to be free agents this year. Dak Prescott obviously kicking things off. I am thinking Dak Prescott is going to be sticking around with the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas needs to win. They can't really afford to bring in another quarterback and go through the process of him finding the groove of this offense. This is a team that has players that can win now. They have a head coach that really needs to win now to justify his hiring this past offseason. They need to get in gear there, and bringing back Dak Prescott would be the best opportunity for them. What about Mitchell Trubisky and the Chicago Bears? Well, I think Mitchell Trubisky also stays put. Why do I think that? Because excuse me, I think they are going to bring someone else in, okay? So don't get me wrong there. I don't think Mitchell Trubisky is going to necessarily be the starting quarterback for this team come the 2021 season opener. But what I do think is that they make the move to try and bring him back now while other things are going on in the background, whether it be a trade for a Deshaun Watson, whether it be drafting somebody else. They bring Mitchell Trubisky back now on probably what will be a little bit better of a deal. I don't think there's going to be too many teams rushing to sign him. So if Chicago shows him even a decent amount of money, even a decent amount of money, he sticks around. And then if they do end up making a trade or drafting somebody, Trubisky could easily go to backup very quickly. What about Jacoby Brissett and the Indianapolis Colts? I think Jacoby Brissett sticks around. He knows the system. They have specific plays designed for him. He's going to be a guy that can come up and be a backup for them. And again, I don't think Jacoby Brissett is going anywhere and becoming a starter anytime soon. He could stay in Indy, win some ball games, and have some plays designed specifically for him. What about Cam Newton? What say you, Patriot Nation? Whoa, actually, Andy Dalton. I'm sorry. Let's talk about Andy Dalton first. I'm skipping over names there. Andy Dalton, I think, does stay with Dallas. Kind of insurance. If for some reason they can't re-sign Dak Prescott, let's bring back Andy Dalton. And then if we don't re-sign Dak Prescott, hey, we've got a guy that knows the system, played fairly well down the stretch. He could step in and still be our starter next year. If for some reason they do bring back Dak, then they've got an insurance policy. If something were to happen and maybe Dak isn't entirely ready to go by the season starts, whatever it may be, they've got that insurance of a guy that knows the system, played in it, and played particularly well at the very end of the season. Now we move on to Cam Newton. I think Cam Newton is done in New England. They'll be moving on from him. They need to find out what Jarrett Stidham has. Okay, is he a guy that can be the future or not? Yeah, you can go 7-9 with Cam Newton if you want to, but it's not like he elevated the offense at all. He helped on the ground, obviously, with his running ability, but he didn't really elevate the passing game or anything like that. He ends up leaving New England. New England drafts somebody, or they sign somebody else, or they bring somebody in, whatever it may be, but Cam Newton will not be the answer in 2021 for the New England Patriots. What about Jameis Winston? Maybe Jameis Winston is one of those guys they take a shot on. Jameis Winston, I think he's out of New Orleans. I think he signed with New Orleans knowing, hey, maybe I have a shot to take over when Drew retires. Maybe if Drew were to get hurt, I could be the guy. Well, we found out quickly that Taysom Hill is still going to be the guy moving forward for the New England Patriots. Jameis Winston knows that, and because of that, he is going to be out of New Orleans. Now to Miami with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Well, the writing is on the wall that they want Tua to be the guy going into 2021. Ryan Fitzpatrick, I believe, will be out of there. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Ryan Fitzpatrick calls it quit at 39. He's been in the league for a long time. Obviously, he's bounced around to a lot of places, but this is probably going to be the end of the road for good old Ryan Fitzmagic. Unfortunately, he won't be there for us to keep our eye on for the waiver wire next year. He leaves Miami, and he gets home and stays there as he heads into retirement. All right, moving on to running backs now. We're going to kick the list off with Kenyon Drake from the Arizona Cardinals. I think Kenyon Drake goes. I don't know if Kenyon Drake sticks around this year. They know that Chase Edmonds is a guy that can step in. He played well sparingly last year, and you're going to have to spend a little bit more money on a longer-term contract with Kenyon Drake. You're going to have to lock him down. He's not going to sign for a one-year deal like he did last offseason. You're going to have to commit a little bit more time and money to him, and I don't know if that's the best for the Arizona Cardinals. I don't know if bringing back Kenyon Drake is the key to unlocking any type of consistency in that offense. I think they can have different running backs in there and do just fine. I don't think that they spend the money to bring back Kenyon Drake. Todd Gurley from the Atlanta Falcons. I think he's out in Atlanta as well. They do have some guys that are backups there. And as I talked about in one of my last videos, I think that they make a signing at running back and they bring somebody else in. Maybe they spend a draft pick on somebody. Whatever it may be, this is an offense that's going to be in a transition period. They could be moving away from Julio Jones and Matt Ryan. There could be a teardown in the works. I doubt that happens. I still think they head into next season with those guys, but I don't think Todd Gurley and that broken knee of his, not really broken, but broken down knee of his, will be the starting running back there come the 2021 season opener. What about Mark Ingram from the Baltimore Ravens? Well, honestly, he's already gone. We know that Baltimore moved on from Mark Ingram already. He will not be with them next year. Definitely still a chance that he could land somewhere with some sort of a role that allows him to compete, but is more of a role that kind of plays that running back to somebody. The running back position is becoming a saturated position in the NFL. There's a lot of very good running backs. I mean, he could go to a team like Buffalo potentially and help back up guys like Singletary and Moss and kind of be there to work with them. But that is the type of role I think Mark Ingram ends up falling into. What about James White and the Patriots? James White, I think he stays. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he hangs out with the Patriots. He stays there. He's their most consistent pass catcher outside of Julian Edelman. He can be a big help to whatever quarterback is under center next year, and he's not going to cost a whole lot of money either. He's not one of those top-tier guys that you have to pay. They'll definitely be able to retain him and keep a veteran presence in an offense and a team that will continue to get younger. Leonard Fournette and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think he stays around. I think Tampa Bay spends the money to re-sign him, and I don't think it's going to take a lot. And quite honestly, him and Le'Veon Bell, who's next on this list, I think they both stick with their respective current teams that will be facing off in the Super Bowl. For Leonard Fournette, I think they can keep him around for a pretty decent price. They're not going to have to pay too much to sign him, and maybe you can give him a 2, maybe 3-year deal at a decent price. He stays there because he wants to play with Brady. He wants to win. Him and Ronald Jones can complement each other. Yeah, you've got Vaughn there, but, they've already showed that they want some running back depth, and they have that with Leonard Fournette if they keep him. And with Le'Veon Bell, I think he sticks around because he's a good complement to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire did not show me as much as he could have last season to say he is ready to take over as a full-time running back. I'm still not sold on him being that type of a workhorse back. Darrell Williams, who has had moments this year where he has stepped in and helped out and has always been a good complementary role there, he is also going to be a free agent. But again, I think Bell is going to be willing to take a discounted price to stick around in Kansas City a little bit longer and be a veteran presence to help Clyde Edwards-Helaire grow as a running back. James Conner from Pittsburgh, I think he goes as well. I don't foresee James Conner sticking around in Pittsburgh this year. They have already got guys on the cheap side that can stay around and back or become basically what James Conner was in that type of a role, but more of a split role. They're not going to look to have a guy that's going to be set in stone. You have Jalen Samuel still. You have Benny Snell still. You have Anthony McFarland, who was used a little bit more as the season went on. Would love to see him get into the game plan a little bit more. It kind of goes to what we'll talk about at the wide receivers when Juju shows up. They've got young guys in place to help out. Why spend the money here when you're going to have to pay some other guys on different parts of the ball to stick around pretty soon? For other running backs, Gus Edwards from the Baltimore Ravens. We already talked about Mark Ingram going out the door. I don't think Gus Edwards does. Now, would I like to see that? Yeah, because then it means J.K. Dobbins is going to be the guy, the main man there. But I think they do bring Gus Edwards back. We know that they love to run the ball. They love to run the ball a lot, and Gus Edwards has done a very good job. He's not going to cost a lot of money. He is a restricted free agent as well, so he can't just take off to another team. Baltimore can match. So if another team were to try and sign him anyway, Baltimore can still bring him back. Phillip Lindsay and the Denver Broncos, I think Phillip Lindsay sticks around. He's been too good for Denver, and he knows that offense well. I think he does stick around, and they sign him. He was a good compliment this year with Melvin Gordon. I think that's the type of backfield that they want to have. I don't see that they just walk away from Phillip Lindsay and let Melvin Gordon continue to be the type of workhorse that he was back in L.A. Chris Carson, Seattle Seahawks. I think he's gone. You've got Rashad Penny there, a former first-round pick. It's time to let the guy loose. They have some other guys that could be good backups to Rashad Penny as well. Don't worry about spending the money on Chris Carson when you have other weapons that you're going to have to spend money on, mainly DK Metcalf here in a couple of years. That's going to be the big one. You're going to have to pay that guy sooner or later. Don't spend the money on Chris Carson, a guy that has had some trouble staying on the field. Let him go to a different team. Aaron Jones and the Green Bay Packers, I think he's gone. I don't think Green Bay is going to re-sign him because I think Jamal Williams sticks around and then him and Dillon become that 1-2 punch. I don't know if it necessarily makes a lot of sense for them to sign Aaron Jones. Would he be worth the money that he signs for? I believe so. I don't have anything against Aaron Jones in terms of him as being a player, and that's why they should move on. I just think that they need to move on from Aaron Jones because they're going to need to spend that money elsewhere. They could spend the money that they're going to spend on Aaron Jones, bringing in another wide receiver who we'll have coming up here in a moment. We can talk more about them, but they could do that. A guy that was linked to this team in the season last year around the trade deadline, Will Fuller. Yeah, he had that suspension at the end of the year, whatever it may be, but instead of paying Aaron Jones, maybe you can take some of that money that you would have paid Aaron Jones and pay Will Fuller and get a true threat on the outside opposite of Devontae Adams. Maybe you need to use that money on the defensive side of the ball here pretty soon to sign some guys. Maybe, there's going to be guys that are going to need extensions and things like that, and we've seen in the past that wrapping a lot of money up and a running back doesn't necessarily make the best sense for a team. Oh, baby, the free agent market is going to be saturated with wide receivers. And atop the list, A.J. Green from the Cincinnati Bengals. Where does he end up going? It's going to be elsewhere. I don't think the franchise wide receiver that's been with them for so long will spend another year in Cincinnati. They have really good wide receivers there to take his place. I don't think that they need to spend that money to bring him back, and I don't necessarily think A.J. Green wants to come back. I think his time in Cincinnati is done. Allen Robinson with the Chicago Bears. He is going to end up going. Now, the only instance that I can see Allen Robinson re-signing with the Bears is if they do go get themselves a franchise-type quarterback right away, and then they say, look, we'd like to keep you here, and they make him a big offer after that. But I do not see Allen Robinson signing with Chicago unless he sees that franchise quarterback in place. T.Y. Hilton with the Indianapolis Colts, I do think that he sticks around. He can probably sign for a little bit cheaper than what he's made in the past. They all know the offense. I think he's going to be excited to try and stick around. He knows that this team is close to winning. It would make a lot better sense for him to try and go elsewhere right now when it is flooded with wide receivers this year. Try to go back. You had a good stretch at the end of the season, but go back with a new quarterback there, maybe a Matthew Stafford, maybe somebody else. Try to put together a full 16 games and then maybe hit the free agent market next year. Larry Fitzgerald with the Arizona Cardinals, I think he goes because I think we're going to hear something about his retirement after the Super Bowl. I don't know if he necessarily sticks around for another year. I don't know if he necessarily needs to either, and I don't know if Arizona is really wanting to spend the money to keep him around. If he were to go to them and say, yeah, I really want to try and give it one more run. We were so close this year. I expect a lot better year next year. Then I think maybe they try to make it work, and I think that they potentially could do that. But for me, I think Larry Fitzgerald is going to call it quits. Sammy Watkins with the Kansas City Chiefs, I think he's going to go. I don't think it's necessarily a match made in heaven for them to bring him back anyway. You have Mecole Hardman who needs to step up and be that other outside wide receiver. Demarcus Robinson, his contract is up, but you could still re-sign him if you want to. Obviously, you have Tyreek Hill. Obviously, you have Travis Kelce. I don't think Sammy Watkins is really going to want to take a huge pay cut. There is a potential someone else might be willing to try and buy into him and see if he can tap back into some of that potential that he showed his first couple of years in Buffalo. Back when he was the big prospect coming out. Obviously, that's faded quite a bit, but he's going to have to go somewhere else to do that. Marvin Jones with Detroit, I think he goes. This is a new regime coming in. I think they're going to want their guys, and I don't think re-signing Marvin Jones for a pretty big contract because the guy has 9+ touchdowns each of the last couple of seasons. I don't think they're necessarily going to want to try and sign him to that type of a deal. He's going to be out the door there. Corey Davis from the Tennessee Titans, he finally found some of that potential that he had when they drafted them. I think he does stay around. I think that they get a deal done to keep him there to be opposite of A.J. Brown. They saw the potential he had last year. Bring that offense back. You're already losing your offensive coordinator. Don't change things around too much. Get Corey Davis back in a Titans uniform and keep him around for a little bit. A next batch of wide receivers that we've got, Brashad Perryman, he signed a one-year deal with the New York Jets. He's headed back to the free agent market, but I don't think he necessarily resigns with New York either. Again, new coaching staff, new regime coming in there in New York. They might be wanting to look elsewhere. Will Fuller with the Houston Texans, he's going to be gone. I don't think that there's any. I don't think there's really any match there between him and Houston to get a deal done. I don't think they're going to be convinced that they can get a deal done. Will Fuller is going to be out the door. He'll get paid somewhere else. Antonio Brown with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I'm going to say he sticks around. I don't think he's going to cost a whole lot to stay there at least another year with Tom Brady. And as you'll see here in a second, he could replace Chris Godwin if Chris Godwin heads out. I think Tampa Bay tries to re-sign Antonio Brown and bring him back. Curtis Samuel with the Carolina Panthers, he's going to be gone, I believe. He's going to try to go somewhere that might utilize his abilities a little bit more than what Carolina has done since they drafted him. Juju Smith-Schuster, he's going to be gone. I've already talked about it. There's no real sense in Pittsburgh spending the money to re-sign Juju when you've got James Washington still, when you've got Chase Claypool, when you've got Deontay Johnson. Not really a whole lot of sense to spend that big price tag to bring Juju back. They've never been that type of a team with their wide receivers outside of Antonio Brown. What they do is they use these guys until they're ready to go on, then they recycle them to another group of wide receivers who can get the job done. Nelson Aguilar with the Las Vegas Raiders, I think he ends up sticking around. There was quite a connection between him and Derek Carr. I think Las Vegas feels that they're pretty close to being able to take the next step to competing to get into the playoffs. They were a lot closer this year. They were there through the end of the season. Nelson Aguilar is a big part of why they were able to do that. Him and Derek Carr have that connection. You got to keep him there. Chris Godwin with Tampa Bay. I think Chris Godwin is going to be gone. Now, a lot of people might not agree on that take. I mean, Chris Godwin could stick around, play with Tom Brady for another year, maybe 2 years, depending on how long Tom stays there before retiring. They're going to be going to a Super Bowl this year, but outside of, really outside of Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin is probably going to be the most sought after piece on the market this season. He's still very young. Yes, it's going to be quite the price tag, but there is going to be a team out there that's going to want to give Chris Godwin a boatload of money, a Brinks truck full of money. When the red carpet gets rolled out for Chris Godwin, it might be a little bit too much for him to pass up, and that's why I see him going elsewhere. 2 more wide receivers left on the list. Kenny Golladay, I've talked about it quite a bit. I think Kenny Golladay is gone. He's going to go get paid elsewhere. Would love to see him stick around, but again, a new regime coming in, they might not want him to stick around. This might be a full teardown in Detroit, and if it is, they're not going to want to spend that type of money on Kenny Golladay. And Allen Lazard for Green Bay, I think he stays. Even though I talked about Green Bay using the money from Aaron Jones to potentially go get another outside threat, Allen Lazard has actually shown a lot of us that he can be a good or a decent wide receiver too with Aaron Rodgers. They seem to have a pretty decent connection at this point. You have to try and bring him back, because even if you do trade for a top-end wide receiver, you're going to have to bring Lazard back to hopefully kind of be that option for him and that safety blanket that he's used repeatedly when Devontae Adams has been dealing with a tougher matchup, or when Devontae Adams is getting too many looks his way, you can go towards Lazard's way. All right, the tight end market, well, let's face it, it's going to be pretty bare this year. For as many wide receivers that there will be on the market, there's not going to be very many tight ends. So for Hunter Henry, I think he sticks in LA. There's going to be probably a lot of suitors for him, a lot of teams that want to upgrade the tight end position. Hunter Henry is going to be a very sought-after piece this year, one that will probably be routinely underlooked by many analysts around, but Hunter Henry is definitely a guy that should stick and grow in LA with Justin Herbert. Keep those weapons around him, make him that number 2 option for Justin Herbert, and get the job done there. Jared Cook, I think he's out of New Orleans. They have Troutman ready to go, kind of in the waiting to go after Jared Cook. Jared Cook, not a great year this year, very up and down performances, was not great a majority of the time, had some bigger plays for them, but he's kind of lost a step now, and he's not the same guy that he used to be. Really no reason to spend money on him when the Saints are way over the cap as it is already. Rob Gronkowski has already said that he does want to come back. If he comes back, it's going to be for Tampa Bay. He's not going to go play elsewhere. So if he does come back, which he's already said he does want to, it will be right there in Tampa Bay another year with Tom Brady and company. Trey Burton with the Indianapolis Colts, I think he does end up staying. Mo Alley-Cox is also a free agent. Jack Doyle's the only one that's going to continue to be under contract there. But for me, they really wanted to get him utilized this year. He was hurt to begin the season, so it took a little bit of time for that to happen. But when he came back, they had 3 wide receivers that they were routinely using. Routinely. I keep saying that, and that is not right at all. I don't know what's wrong with me. Routinely use, but Trey Burton is probably the best weapon out of all of them in terms of athleticism and his overall ability at the position. I think they try to bring him back for whoever will be their quarterback this year. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it, another episode in the books. Hopefully you all enjoyed this breakdown of the top free agents at each position, whether they stay or whether they go, maybe a little bit of fantasy impact in 2021, what we could potentially see for them. But do me a favor, if you're new here to the Fantasy Headliners, make sure you hit that subscribe button and stick around for even more great content this offseason. And don't forget, we will be here all offseason long. No, we're not going to be doing videos every single day like you're used to, but it's still going to be coming out. Give us a little bit of a break. It's been a long season. We've been doing shows every single day since at least August, maybe mid-July. So it's been a while. We've been pumping out that content for quite a few months now. So we're taking a step back right now, putting together still some really good content for you, but make sure you don't miss any of it. If you turn on that bell notification, you will know every single time an episode drops. Hit that like button if you appreciate the content, and then leave a comment down below as well. Anybody that you disagree with, somebody that you think that sticks with their team, somebody that does leave that I said the opposite of, where do you think some of these guys might land? Obviously, let me know in the comments down below. Appreciate everybody out there in Headliner Nation. Hopefully you all are doing well. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.